Hey guys, so in this video I wanted to go over what to look for in a pre-workout. And I asked this question to you guys on Instagram story if you guys were really interested in this topic, and the results were overwhelmingly positive, and to be honest I really wasn't like that surprised. The reality is that most people don't really know what to look for in a pre-workout in terms of dosing, ingredients that are in it. They just take like whatever their favorite fitness influencers marketing or whatever the guy at GNC says to take. So I decided to simulate some of the research and things I learned taking my sports nutrition classes in school. I have my degree in exercise science, so I know a thing or two about this stuff. I've also just learned a lot from independent and meta-analysis, like learning from like mass, like Dr. Trexler in particular, and like Lane Norton about this stuff. So I want to first go say what you do not want to have in a pre-workout. So something that has a proprietary blend. A proprietary blend is essentially supplement companies trying to protect their formulas, which is really funny because every single pre-workout that is good or does work well is more or less going to have the same ingredients that are effective. Now, the caveat is that some of them are going to be underdosed or overdosed, and that's a big problem with proprietary blends. Also, like, you might not be getting enough of one thing or too much of another thing, and you as the consumer should know what is in your product, because the reality is that if you wanted to do all the research, you could go on to PubMed, journal analysis, see what supplements are actually effective, what don't work for enhancing performance in the gym and workouts in general. So proprietary blends are kind of silly because, like what I just said, you can go online and like this stuff is free. Like science has a lot of stuff out for free. Science is a service community essentially. So make sure that your pre-workout has all the ingredients on the label. So the caffeine dosage and the amounts, and that type of stuff. So that's number one. You don't want to have a proprietary blend. And the main thing that you want to look for with pre-workouts are stuff that are going to have an acute performance benefit primarily. And that's why I'm not including something like creatine in my list of what to look for a pre-workout, because that's not something that's going to make an ounce of difference with one dose. You're going to have to take either a loading protocol, which is going to take 2 weeks of, usually like 1 to 2 weeks of loading, depending on how extreme your loading protocol is, how much you can tolerate it, or up to about 30 days if you just take it from a normal dose in order to take peak saturation levels. That's not going to really enhance your performance going into a workout session. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on with this, is ingredients that have an acute effect. And so they should mainly improve your energy, allow you to perform more work, and just feel more energized going into your sessions. It should improve cognition and focus, so you're able to think clear for extended periods of time, and then enhance your workout enjoyment, because that's important. If you look good, if your pre-workout has some ingredients in it that's going to enhance your enjoyment of it, then that's going to help improve your adherence and your enjoyment of the gym. So that's basically the three things to just what it should mainly have, and that's what these ingredients I'm going to mention are going to have. And so I'm just going to go over and separate this into two categories. So the first part is going to be my top three. So the top three ingredients that you should have in a pre-workout in order of performance, like improvements, enhancements, and what's probably going to have the biggest overall effect size, the most studied, etc. And then I'm going to have a amendum to that. So I'm going to have like some bonus ones that will still be beneficial and have likelihood to be beneficial, but either they're not going to have as much of a magnitude of effect, or we don't have enough research that should definitively say in one direction or not, like yes, absolutely take this or whatnot. So with that out of the way, I want to hop into the first one. So number one, pre-workout should have caffeine in it. Caffeine is a stimulant. what it's going to do is it's going to decrease perception of fatigue and effort via the central nervous system and increase your concentration. It will also decrease glycogen usage and inhibit and increase fatty acid oxidation. This is important because if we can spare glycogen, we can have longer durations of workout performance, and this is particularly important for lifters, for people that train with weights, because so it's alactic, so it means it's going to, or it's alactic / lactic depending on like how many reps that you're doing, which basically means it's going to rely on the lactic acid, like the glycolytic pathways of energy metabolism. So there are two pathways of energy in the body. There's a glycolytic, and then there's going to be your oxidative. And glycolytic is going to be more for like sprinting, high intense, short duration bouts. And carbohydrates and glycogen are going to be used primarily with that through via glycolysis. And then you're going to have a second one, which is going to be oxidative, which is like Krebs cycle, the citric acid cycle. There's some intermediate pathways like beta oxidation, like fats and stuff like that, but those are mainly going to be used with more endurance-based activities. So this is really important for I guess lifting weights, for being able to lift for harder for longer, essentially. And then it also has a effect on endorphins, and that basically it's going to increase the beta endorphin release during exercise, which is going to decrease your perception of pain. So you can basically push through that wall easier. That's why one of the reasons why, if you might have not been able to, like something might have felt a lot easier on, let's say 315 on squat usually is, an RPE 8. It could be an RPE 7. It decreases that perception of effort and pain. So how much should you take of it, and when should you take caffeine? So 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weights, and it should be taken 30 to 60 minutes before exercise. So for example, if you were weighing 90 kilograms or 200 pounds, you want to take 270 at the low end to see any performance enhancing benefits, and up to 540 milligrams of caffeine. Anything more than that is not going to positively benefit you. It could probably actually have a net negative benefit. So I would really recommend do not exceed that, and only use more when you have to. So start at the low end, so 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, see how you respond to that, and then increase accordingly as needed. So that's caffeine. That's number one. Number two is going to be citrulline malates / L-citrulline. And so these are going to be nitric oxide precursor supplements. What they do is they're going to enhance blood flow to muscles via vasodilation. So they're going to widen your veins and help improve our capillary exchange of gas at the capillaries through the veins and whatnot during exercise. And this is going to improve exercise performance and recovery as well by facilitating the delivery of energy substrates and oxygen, while facilitating the clearance of fatigue-inducing exercise metabolites. You don't need to know what all of that means. Essentially, it just means that if you're going to have more gas exchange, if you're going to be able to get more nutrients to the muscle, you're going to have better clearance of a lot of these fatigue factors that are going to be in the blood. So like lactate, for example, increasing acidosis in the bloodstream, it'll help clear that, which is going to be the burn that we all know. It'll help clear that for a little bit longer, help you, have a longer time to fatigue, because you don't have the, too much hydrogen ions, which will make your blood more acidic, preventing cross-bridge cycling and blocking the actin myosin binding sites on the muscle, which help facilitate muscle contraction. And that's kind of important, obviously. It also is going to enhance muscular endurance by measured by repetitions completed prior to fatigue. It also enhances the contractile function of muscle via calcium release through the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is basically calcium is actually what mediates the actual contraction of muscle like once the action potentials from your nervous system reach the muscle, they're going to go into your muscle cells, propagate down T2 tubules, activate ryanodine receptors inside of the muscles, which will kind of open the gates, quote unquote, to allow calcium release to happen. And then that is going to essentially take the actin myosin cross-bridge binding sites, expose them through taking off troponin and tropomyosin, and allow for that cross-bridge cycling to occur. So that's a little bit of basic exercise physiology for there, but that's how it works. It also can potentially promote hypertrophy via cell swelling. This is vasodilation, increased blood flow. Satellite cell activation as a result of that. Satellite cells are nuclei around the muscles, essentially, and they are going to help give rise to new muscles. They are quiescent, which normally means they are dormant. We have a fixed number of satellite cells per muscle through myonuclei, myonuclear domains. And basically, exercise resistance training, that pump will actually help activate them to just help facilitate recovery and muscle growth. And also, it can actually enhance capacity for training volume. However, these are just theoretical mechanisms. These are not 100% like supported, but it could be something that does happen. So if you're going, so you know, obviously it's nitric oxide precursor, and basically it's going to help improve levels of arginine in the blood. Now you might ask, well, there's something called arginine. Why not just take arginine? Well, the unfortunate thing is that arginine is actually not as bioavailable, which means your body cannot use it as readily when compared to citrulline malate or L-citrulline. So take citrulline malate over L-arginine. It's going to be more effective at increasing nitric oxide levels in the blood. So now on to timing and dose. This is pretty straightforward. You want to take 6 to 8 grams of citrulline malate or L-citrulline 60 minutes prior to exercise. So that's number 2, citrulline malate. So the last one of my top 3 is going to be beta-alanine. Beta-alanine is going to be an acid buffer, and this is going to help improve levels of carnosine in skeletal muscle. And higher levels of carnosine are going to lead to a decrease of acidosis. Again, it's a buffer. Because acidosis, like I already told you, is going to, you know, induce fatigue faster, and it's a big part of it. And so it also, yeah, so that's the main benefit. It's going to help you with being able to, if you're doing higher reps, so let's say you're doing like 10 reps or something, or more than that, you're going to be able to probably perform more repetitions before you fatigue. Now, if you're primarily performing something like, you know, power lifts, so like 3 reps, it's not really probably going to do that much, but it's something that could be beneficial if you're doing hypertrophy work, especially if you're later on, if you're, you know, feeling some fatigue towards the end of your session. This could help improve the time to help delay that time to fatigue and help your performance later on. And this is because, again, it reduces muscle acidosis. It also has potential to increase peak power at high intensity exercise. So this is one of the reasons why it could actually benefit powerlifters, but it's to a smaller extent than the time to fatigue. So now on the timing per dose and dosing, this is not timing dependent. It doesn't really matter when you take it, but beta-alanine dosing ranges between 2.4 to 6.4 grams per day. Now, I recommend starting out at the lower end of that because beta-alanine can have a paresthesia, that tingling effect, that's just kind of uncomfortable for some people. So if you are finding that is an uncomfortable sensation for you, you know, most beta-alanine supplements are going to have around like 2 grams. So I've noticed like most pre-workouts, which will have a small benefit, but it, you know, should technically have a little bit more. But that's because lots of people don't really like that tingling thing. I personally enjoy it. It makes me feel kind of amped up. But yeah, if you don't like that, then just take less of it, or you don't have to take beta-alanine. This effect size is relatively small compared to caffeine and L-citrulline. So those are my top 3 that your pre-workout should have: caffeine, Beta-Alanine, and L-Citrulline or Citrulline Malates. So there are a few other bonus ones I wanted to talk about, and these are kind of the first two are going to kind of work in concordance with caffeine, kind of act like as a they kind of will enhance caffeine's effects and help promote a nice synergy and balance it out. So the first one is going to be L-theanine, and this is an amino acid that has a positive effect when it is combined with caffeine. When it is used with caffeine, it increases your reaction time, attention, focus. It produces jitteriness, and it causes you to be a little bit less anxious and less like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, and like shaking all over the place and like having like those caffeine like bam like symptoms. It'll kind of have more of a a slower release, or like it doesn't dampen the effects of caffeine. It will help it. But it will make the effects of like the holy crap, like my heart rate is super elevated and whatnot, like sympathetic nervous system tone out the ass, like way less like prevalent. And so the timing and dosing of this is you're going to want to take 100 to 200 milligrams of this alongside caffeine. The number 5 is going to be L-Tyrosine. This goes along with L-theanine. And again, it potentiates caffeine stimulative effects by helping produce noradrenaline and dopamine. And this is going to help you reduce stress during exposure to acute stressors. So essentially, you're going to be able to have the noradrenaline and the dopamine more readily available, and you're going to not have like a depletion as fast. So you're going to be able to just basically train harder for longer, and not have the caffeine, I guess, wear off as fast. You won't have that crash. So that's a really helpful thing, because that come down off caffeine can be kind of tough if you're just taking it alone. And I've found that L-theanine and L-tyrosine together, just if you haven't tried it, like it's really good. It gets you in like this nice flow state. You're like all happy and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a good time. I like getting high off of L-theanine and L-tyrosine. So the timing and dosing of this. So you want to take 500 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams 30 to 60 minutes before exercise. Or you could even take this, like, the cool thing about L-tyrosine too is that you could take this like during like exams or like a stressful time of work. It will actually like relax you, which is pretty cool. Well, the last one is going to be betaine, and this is something that's relatively new. We don't have much studies on this, but I know that Eric Trexler has been examining this a lot more. He released an article in Monthly Applications in Strength Sports, which is a research review. But basically, it's relatively new. Like I said, research is just starting to accumulate, but has potential to reduce time to fatigue and lifting via increases in nitric oxide blood levels, enhancing endogenous synthesis of creatine and carnitine, which are important parts of the phosphagen energy system and the glycolytic energy system, which are going to help you perform, like train harder for longer and have increased work output. Also help improve cellular hydration. You want to have your muscles adequately hydrated, your cells adequately hydrated. Water is really important for everything. I shouldn't need to explain that. But yes, water is good in the muscles and in the cells. Being dehydrated is bad, children. It also has potential to increase work output and power/strength output, and it may improve body composition by increasing like lipolysis and fatty acid oxidation, so actual fat burning, and muscle growth via enhancement of the IGF-1 pathway, so that's insulin growth like factor 1. Now, a lot of these mechanisms of action are not like thoroughly studied. It's kind of like in the current stage of research, we're kind of like in the, oh, this is kind of cool. And I would recommend taking betaine like if you have the money. Some of you might have already taken betaine without knowing. It is kind of starting to be in some pre-workout formulas, like Qualifreak, Staunch Nation, which is what I'm going to recommend at the end of this video, actually does use betaine in conjunction with choline to help enhance the effects of betaine and whatnot. And choline is a neurotransmitter, but it have a good synergy to get together. So betaine, take it if you want, it'll probably have a small benefits. We don't know yet. I would basically say if you want to experiment, if you have the money, then try it out, see what happens. You might not notice anything, but hey, you're contributing to science. So timing and dosage is going to be 1.25 grams 2 times daily, or you're going to want to have 1 gram of it with 1 gram of choline. So that's it. That's basically my video on what to look for in a pre-workout supplement. The pre-workout that I use is Qualifreak. I'll pop it up on the screen with the ingredient profile. I use this like pretty religiously. I love Staunch Nation. The reason why I decided to work with them is because before I work with any supplement company or I endorse any brand or whatever, I'll always take a look at their product and say, would I take this myself? Do I stand behind them, their brand name, their vision? I've been treated phenomenally by the company. They really do look out for their athletes. They have great products. And I would really just recommend that if you are looking for a good high quality pre-workout, then Qualifreak is great. If you use my code PEELER15 at checkout, you will save some money and support your boy. As I got some student loans to pay off, you know. But as a side note, if you don't have money for pre-workout, this pre-workout is, it is an expensive supplement. Like one good bottle with a lot of